Here's where the universe began, and where it will end. Everything wrong with the universe soon will be right, the way it has to be. Don't you understand? There's no one left to stand in my way, and nothing you can do except talk.
You don't like the Drake?
Hate the Drake.
I love the Drake.
How could you not like the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
Who's the Drake?
Drake is good. You like the Drake? I love the Drake. Let's go. Good for them. Love the Drake.
Got to love the Drake.
Let's go.
I'm impressed.
What can I say? I'm irresistible.
This is Robin. Everyone loves the Drake podcast. This is episode number 59, and my name is Justin Kowalski. I am currently seeing all alternate versions of myself coalescing into one true version, so I'm really thankful for that today. I want to let you guys know that this show is available at thebatmanuniverse.net, which is a gigantic net filled with Batman-focused podcasts, so please check that out. We are also part of the Batman Podcast Network.com, hosted by Batman on Film, so go check over at that page for some more shows. Again, my name is Justin, and I'm really excited to be here. It's good to feel like I'm coming together and knowing that Jeff Johns will soon come in and take care of all of my issues in about 4 to 5 years. That being said, I'm going to hand this show over to Rob, Terence, and Ryan. Thank you for having me on.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks, Justin, for doing the intro, and thought I was going to kind of fool some people. Welcome to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake. I'm getting ready to kick this over. This is obviously an edit into the show, an edit I didn't think I was going to have to do. This has been a series of editing nightmares for this particular episode. This episode is already an hour long, and I haven't pieced it together with the intro to the show and everything, so I'm going to try and make this quick. But I at least want you guys to know up front what is going on with this episode. Not bragging or anything, but I have spent a little over 16 hours editing this particular episode, actually editing this one and part of the 60th episode that'll be coming up. Is essentially a two-parter. We were using a program called Zencastr to record. Most podcasters use Skype, and Ryan has this other program that we've used twice on this show, I think, and they use over at Batman on Film. And I think Justin might use it as well. Anyway, I had heard it once listening to Batman on Film that it sounded like they had like two conversations going at the same time on one episode. And I thought, well, that just kind of sounded weird. It sounds like they spliced in another set of audio. And then the same thing happened to us. So we had Justin on this episode, which you heard him do the intro to the show. And for some reason, in Terence's microphone, it caused him to be off by 2 seconds at some point and 5 seconds. In some cases, he was off by almost a minute. So there were 4 separate channels being recorded, and it kind of condenses everything down to one, and that's how you would edit the show. Or you have the option, I could edit Ryan's track, and I can edit my track and take out all the weird uhs, and those little type of things that I do from time to time. But when I heard the final mix of it, you could hear it sounded like Terence was just talking randomly, or he was like running over the rest of us as we were talking. I thought that just sounds weird. I know that's not how it was when we did it live on the call. So I had to break down and do it by each individual track and try and sync them up. So you may hear a couple little hiccups in there. I tried to get everything back in order, and I think I got 99.9% of it back in. I was real meticulous at doing it, but because I lost track, there's probably 500 edits between the two podcasts, easy, and maybe even 600, because there were so many separate wave files that I had to kind of splice together and put back together. I might have missed one or two, or because there were so many, the program that I'm using couldn't handle that many separate little waveforms, so some kind of slid back into their original position or slid into different positions. So periodically you may hear Terence giggle out of context, or you may hear him talk in the middle of something. I think I've got most of those all set up. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there and kind of let you know what's going on. And by me talking right now in the intro of the show, this particular episode is already kind of long. We're going to push over an hour into this one, so I apologize for that. I think this episode, once I got it all put back in time, turned out really good, and I didn't want to I think Batman on Film recently had one that they had to re-record for similar instances, and I think on Justin's Let's Go comic show, he had to do some editing, and Ryan recently had to do some editing, so I don't entirely know what's going on with Zencastr at the moment, but I didn't want to call everybody back up and say, hey, let's get back in, let's re-record this all over again, because our conversation was really good, and sometimes when you have to redo something, it kind of starts sounding forced, like, oh, this is what I said last time, and here, I'm going to throw this little joke in. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I was going to try and go and not do the beginning part of this, but the way we had it set up, it went from Justin to Terence, and I recorded something separately, and he had a little thing he wanted to talk about, but in that recording, I lost his voice entirely, and we were using Skype, so it's been really odd lately. But recently, Terence and I recorded, and it was fine. So I'm tired of scratching my head. I don't have much hair the way it is. So here's the episode. I would say warts and all, but I think I got most of all of the warts off. But you may hear a couple little here or there. So thanks for listening to the episode. This is episode 59, like you heard Justin say. So this is a show that Terence is running, so I get to play second fiddle. So I'm going to sit back, hand the cowl or the domino mask over to Terence, and I'll let him take over for Robin issue number 10. Take it away, Terence.
So with us, now that I've taken over the show, is Ryan Haas. And I think, Ryan, this is the first time we spoke, not face-to-face, but computer-to-computer, I guess, since you've become a dad. So how is fatherhood treating you? Yeah.
It's treating me well. I'm really tired, but it's totally worth it.
Have you spoiled little baby Nora with a lot of Batman stuff yet? Or
Yes, we've watched lots of Batman. We've watched we have watched 1966 Batman movie. We've watched Mask of the Phantasm 2 times, and we've watched The Dark Knight Rises.
Is she happy with the Blu-ray transfer?
She was. She liked it. She liked both versions, and she also liked Dark Knight Rises, and she liked John Blake and stuff, and so I told her, so she's already a really good baby. So
that's good. Well, sometimes our kids take the mistakes our parents make.
Yeah.
All right.
Last time, yeah. Well, as I said, last time we spoke, you were going to play the Batman '89 pinball machine, and we were making some jokes about your wife going into labor, and you were ignoring her because you were playing. And then the next day, I think Nora came. Yeah. So, was your wife in labor during the pinball game, or did the pinball have anything to do with that? Or
it didn't have anything to do with it, but it literally was the afternoon before the pinball. You can even go back on my Twitter and watch my video of me demoing, and Sarah comes in and helps too. We demo the '89 Batman pinball machine.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And that was like, the afternoon of July 4th. And we went to the hospital. Sarah went in labor. We went to the hospital around 1:30 a.m. on July 5th.
Oh, wow. So the reason why I wanted to take over the show, because I'm going to claim this was my idea, although as you can hear some of the tension, maybe Ryan will not like this here, and that is we've got with us Justin Kowalski, as you can find him on Twitter at @J_Rocka. He's a host of the Let's Go podcast, the Let's Go Comic Cast, and Batman on Film Roundtable. And I had the idea to have Justin on because I was listening to Batman on Film, and the guys were talking, especially Rick was talking for like about 15, 20 minutes straight on some rant. And all of a sudden they like
gravy or something.
Yeah. And they threw it to Justin, and it was like without skipping a beat, he just jumped right in. And I was like, wow, that's skills. I would have like been, what?
Rick's shoe is hard to follow sometimes.
Yeah. So I was like, we got to have him on. And I'm like, hey, Ryan's got a connection. Ryan could get him on. So Justin, thank you for coming on and being on our show. And how's it going today?
Oh man, I'm excited. I told Ryan, I was like, I got to get on the 0 Hour episodes because those are, I love those 2 issues. Those are 2 of my favorites. I actually just reread issue 10 with my son, and he was like, because it's weird.
That's awesome.
We just watched Back to the Future yesterday. And he was like, it's like Back to the Future 2. And so anyway, it made us have a fun conversation about it. So yeah, man, I love those issues. And I listen to the show, so it's fun to be a part.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for being on. I listened to the Let's Go comic show number 22, the purple Bruce Willis today while I was cutting the grass.
That's a great one.
Yeah, I must have looked like a complete crazy person because it's hilarious, especially the Savage Hawkman, Macho Man Savage and all that. So I'm out there cutting the grass just laughing hysterical. My neighbors think I lost my mind, but it's been a lot of fun. But
we actually need to get you on because you won.
Yeah,
Terrence is a winner.
Yeah, Terence is a winner.
I've got a good story for when I went to see the Ramones long ago, so I'll save that for the comic show or whichever one you want me on. But yeah, that was a fun night going to see the Ramones way back when. Quick question for you, and I'll let all the guys chime in on this. But it was something I thought of when I was listening to Batman on Film the other day, and they were kind of teasing you a little bit about how you wrote like an essay defending the ice skates in Batman and Robin.
Oh man, I forgot. I should have brought that up today, Justin.
Yeah. And I thought of the Dark Knight where they say you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And editor's note, Rob. There's a thing from San Diego Comic-Con where. Oh crap! What's his face? I blanked on his name. That Batman animated series guy.
Bruce Timm.
No, the other guy, the voice of Batman. I can't think. Kevin Conroy.
Oh yeah,
I blanked on his name. Yeah, Kevin Conroy reading The Dark Knight, and he reads that line. So add that line in here. It'll be cool.
The Joker won. All of Harvey's prosecutions, everything he fought for, undone. Whatever chance you gave us of fixing our cities dies with Harvey's reputation. We bet it all on him. The Joker took the best of us and tore him down. People will lose hope.
They won't. They must never know what he did.
5 dead. 2 of them cops. You can't sweep that up.
But the Joker cannot win. Gotham needs its true hero.
No!
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I can do those things because I'm not a hero. Not like Dent. I killed those people. That's what I can be.
No, you can't. You're not.
I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be. Call it in.
They'll hunt you.
You'll hunt me. You'll condemn me. Set the dogs on me. Because that's what needs to happen. Because sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded.
But
all right, that was great.
But thinking about that, so all the stuff we saw with Batman 66 and Adam West's passing, he was the villain. Like he was the hero in the 60s, and then in the 80s and 90s, he was the villain. Man, people like hated that guy for what he did. Not everybody, but there was like that Batman sucks. That's not the real Batman. And unfortunately, I was one of those people.
That happens with it happens with each new iteration. People start to jump on the old one. I mean, just look at people jumping on the Nolan films now that we have Batfleck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was actually in Hollywood Studios, Disney World, back when I was 19, and Adam West was there taking pictures and signing autographs. and my mom was like, "Hey, let's go see him." And I was like, "Nah, I don't want to see him. He's not the real Batman." And now I'm killing myself. Like, oh man, I could have met him, and so I was such an idiot. I want to go back to the future. I want to go back and slap 19-year-old myself. But my question for you, Justin, is: do you think people will look back at Batman and Robin and come to appreciate that the way they appreciate 66? Or is that one too far gone? Never.
Yeah. I don't not in the reverence that 66 gets, but I will say that even watching it now, I think you can watch it with a different set of eyes. You no longer see it as part of, the timeline of, the Burton stuff, because it kind of got lumped in there. But I just see it as something kind of fun. You can sit back and watch it and go, this is kind of funny. I mean, it's one of the movies that my son first watched because he couldn't watch any of the other ones, So it takes on a different type of beast now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't think it's going to have the reverence of, like, no one's going to be petitioning for, like, the box set collection of Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
But you know what? Who knows, dude? 20 years from now, it could be some weird, like, hipster teenage thing. Who knows, dude? Who knows? But I'm going to say no. But if it does get celebrated, I'm going to find that letter that I wrote and say, everybody, I was on board.
I was ahead of the curve. Yeah.
Ice skates.
Batman
was prepared.
This is why Superman works alone.
Yeah. What do you think, Rob? Where do you see it in like 25 years? Are you going to be kicking yourself that you didn't meet Joel Schumacher when you had a chance?
I will shake Joel Schumacher's hand for Batman forever. I enjoy that film immensely. I'm probably one of the few. Sorry, Andy DiGenova. But I don't know. We saw it on opening night, and then I walked out of the theater going, what was that? My cousin wanted to go see it the following night, so we went and saw it again. We got to Bane, Bomb, Monkey. My cousin's like, let's get out of this theater. That has been the only Batman movie. I mean, I saw it once before, but it's the only time I've ever walked out of a theater. I think I sheepishly went out because he was making such a scene that I was like, okay, let's go. So I walked out of Batman and Robin, but technically I saw it once already. I don't know. It's one of those. I think it's so divisive. We just had the conversation last episode about Batman Returns, how we kind of came around to it. The things in Batman Returns, I think, still work, and it's still a solid movie. But you can just look at Batman and Robin, and every other scene is like, oh, it can't get worse than that. Nope, there are the ice skates. Nope, there's the weep, Fred Flintstone sound effect. So I don't know. It's gonna take something for it to be really appreciated. But I do say Batman is a lot like pizza. Even when it's bad, it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Well, if you like pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Ryan, did you have any...
Okay, sushi.
Yeah. Ryan, did you have any thoughts on this, or do you want to just get into 0 hour and forget I ever mentioned
No,
Batman
my main comment / in-joke was I'm not a huge fan of pizza, and Justin knows this, so... but your comment still stands.
Very good.
So.
Got to live right, just stay in line. You've heard it on at least 1,000,000 times. And like me, you believed it. They said it wasn't worth, but trying harder wouldn't hurt. It sounds so crazy now, but back then you couldn't see it. Now here you are, eyes open wide. It's like you're seeing grace in a brand new light for the first time. Let us be the first to welcome you. Welcome to the life you thought was too good to be true. Welcome to the Welcome to
All right, so let's jump right into 0 hour here, Robin 10. And I sent Rob and Ryan a little, I think you got it too, Justin, a little promo video that DC Comics had made. It was about 15 minutes or so. And Rob, I think you said you're going to add in a little sound clip here and there.
I will reorder the universe, and you will not stop me.
So it's kind of cool to see the different editorial staff and things like that. And Zero Hour, it's pitched as, fixing the continuity in DC Comics, but we all know that that's just a cover for trying to increase sales, trying to get new people like, hey, come on. But I actually really like the 0 Hour and the 0 Hour events and this issue in particular. So I'll just kind of go around to everybody. And where was your connection to 0 Hour? Were you reading it when it came out? Did you backpedal to it? What did you read for 0 Hour and what'd you think of it? So Rob, what was your 0 Hour connection?
The death of Superman kind of, I was right there at the beginning of that. I obviously was reading, about Tim Drake and stuff like that going through, but I didn't become like a weekly comic book goer until like the death of Superman. I was picking up random Batman and detective books, the featured Tim, obviously, but it was kind of right there. I was getting in the routine of like, oh, go to the comic book shop this week and get books. So by the time you go all the way through Nightfall, I was already invested in it and seeing things for 0 Hour at kind of leading into at the very end of Nightfall, rather. I was like, oh, this is cool. Truth be told, I've never read Crisis on Infinite Earths. I'm going to get booed every time I mention books I haven't read. So this was kind of like my first major event book that was DC worldwide. So I was kind of like, wow, I didn't quite grasp the concept while it was going on, but and then the books being numbered and going backwards really threw me. I was like, it's the second week. Shouldn't I be picking up issue 2, but I'm picking up issue 4, and then all the Zero tie-ins. So I was there, hook, line, and sinker through the whole thing, and I bought a lot of books during that time. So that's where I was with it.
How about you, Ryan?
Well, for me, of course, I was still a kid when all this stuff came out, but I do remember, going into the grocery store, and they would carry a very small select number of issues, but I remember seeing, like, Batman number 0. Oh my gosh, we're going to be rich. This is going to be amazing. but then, I kind of figured it out, and it's like, but that's kind of what's cool about it. It is something for, the layman to look at and be like, oh, they're doing something interesting with this. At issue 0, I don't think that issue 0s were too common of a thing that happened at that time, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So it's kind of a cool thing to do. 0 Hour, the issues are 0, and it's just kind of a cool across the board kind of. That's the stunt part of it, and that kind of gets you into it on the marketing side of it, which is interesting. But I've read a few of the issues, and they're all cool because the Batman ones, at least, there's a brand new trade that has a lot of these Batman issues in it.
It's beautiful, by the way.
The covers, as a kid, even, all the covers are things that you just kind of instantly get drawn to. You see the Robin issue, we're about to talk to Robin 10, it's like, oh man, the old Robin and the new Robin, what's that about? Or you see the Batman issue where it's got Batgirl in the Batcave, and you're like, oh man, but her back's broken, what's going on? Or she's paralyzed, what's going on? Another one of my favorites is the Superman Man of Steel one that you're talking about, Terence, where you've got Superman and then you've got all these different versions of Batman. And as a kid, I even knew like this is the one from the 60s, this is the new one, this cool. Is the Dark Knight Returns. I knew all those versions even as a kid, so I thought that was just really cool. So I read a couple of them but I've never actually taken the time to read the event series itself, so I really don't even know what it's about, other than the fact that it did end up resetting some timeline stuff afterwards. But I think in the case of Tim Drake and Nightfall and all that, it didn't really change too much, but I guess the big part of it was changing the particulars of Batman's origin, right, with Joe Chill and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the big things that came out of it were that the Justice Society was kind of placed as the generation before Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and that they were a generation older in age. They aged them, which then led to Jeff Johns' Justice Society run later on, which is an amazing run. So thank you for that.
I thought that the Justice Society. Sorry, I'm trying to get my story straight, but I thought after Armageddon 2001 is when the Justice Society came out of retirement, because they did this whole miniseries where Monarch, I thought it was called Armageddon Inferno, and it was a miniseries where the Justice Society came out of limbo, and I think that's when they came back into the there was a Mike Parabeck Justice Society series that only lasted 10 issues, and then I think the Jeff Johns one came after 0 Hour.
Jeff Johns, sorry to interrupt. Jeff Johns was much later.
No.
You're right. That brought the Justice Society back. 0 Hour aged them. So, like, when they were brought back, they were, like, the same age as Batman and Superman. This kind of set the timeline. Okay. Like, there's one scene where they, like, all age and become, like, decrepit man. And even the cover of issue 3 has got, like, Hour Man and Jay Garrick with gray hair. So you're right. They had been brought back earlier. This just aged them and put them like the generation before, and then the Jeff Johns stuff I think comes like a decade later. That comes in the 2000s. But
as soon as you said that clicked.
Yeah, I remember
that scene of Jay Garrick aging. You're right.
Yeah, I just meant it was a stepping stone. But anyway, go ahead, Justin. What did you think about 0 Hour? Yeah,
oh man, 0 Hour was crazy for me because I remember for some reason I got a bunch of black and white preview covers. I don't know how I got them, and I remember making copies of them at my mom's work, and I colored them in.
Cool.
I remember I had no idea. For some reason, I had no idea who Connor Hawke was. They didn't have names or anything, but going back, I know it was Connor Hawke, but it was like Green Arrow, and I was like, "What's up? Why does Green Arrow not have a beard?" Like that was a big deal to me. That he looks like the old school version and all this stuff, and I was really. I didn't care too much about what was going on. It was just a DC event, so I read DC events. But then afterwards, I was really upset because I was a huge Guy Gardner fan, and I hated what happened to Guy.
That's where he
the whole Guy
Gardner.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, the alien technology and stuff. It was so dumb.
Yeah.
But I liked Connor Hawke. I liked the idea of Connor Hawke. I like how he was in the Justice League America later on. The Batman stuff was weird. I didn't know why it was important to get rid of like Joe Chill, that idea. So that was weird. And then some of the stuff just didn't make sense. I get what they were trying to do, but like the whole Supergirl, like her not being super, like Matrix version, like all that stuff, like, and then Hawkman was the biggest issue, and I'm a big Hawkman fan, and it just, I was like, finally I can read Hawkman and not feel weird, and then that got weird. It still got weird until Jeff Johns fixed it in like 99 or whatever it was, and so I was always hoping for Hawkman to get fixed, and just I don't even feel like the explaining in that book made any sense, and so I feel like 0 Hour started to do something and it just didn't do it. I don't think it fixed anything, to be honest.
Yeah, it seems like every time. It seems like every time they do a stunt to fix the continuity, they just mess it up even more, or they fix one thing, but it makes 3 things out of whack. Yeah. So, I agree totally.
Yeah. Because the Batman stuff, like it didn't make any sense. There was nothing to really fix with Batman, to be honest. I think all the big issues were. Even how they, like, after Crisis, how they started Man of Steel and then the Wonder Woman in year 1, that stuff didn't bug me no much. I can push them all in the same timeline. It was really Hawkman and the Legion of Superheroes that were the huge issues, and they still haven't fixed that stuff.
No.
There's still issues, so... Anyways, there you go.
Yeah, cool.
But I liked it. I like the 0 issues. I like the weird stuff. Yeah. So that was fun.
And that stuff's cool because it doesn't have to fit into any continuity because it's all just jumbled and crazy.
Exactly.
Can just be a cool story. There's 3 issues I wanted to mention that we're not going to review, but they are kind of either Batman or Tim Drake-ish. And that Detective Comics number 0 has got a really cool cover of Batman and Robin, Tim Drake Robin, but Tim Drake's not in that issue at all. So if you ever want to check out a cool cover, that's cool. Another one that doesn't have Tim Drake in it, but is a must for any Batman fan, is Superman Man of Steel 37. That's the one Ryan had just mentioned. And that is really fun because the cover's got all these Batmen on it. And for some reason, though, on the cover, the original Batman with the purple gloves his doesn't have his gloves on. I guess the inker on the cover didn't know, but he has it on in the issue. And it starts off with like Neil Adams' 1960s, 1970s Batman, and he sees Superman with the mullet and the long hair, and he's like, "You're not going hippie on me, are you?" I always love that scene. And there's a couple panels where you've got the Dark Knight, which, Rob, I know you've never read that. that, but it's this very popular book by Frank Miller. But the Dark Knight Batman with the original Batman and the Neil Adams Batman all together, it's a really cool issue. And then the other one, which we won't cover, but I just wanted to mention it, is Shadow of the Bat 31. That's a really fun Tim Drake issue where the original Alfred Beasley comes back, because the Alfred is gone. Beagle, is that it? Beagle? Okay, yeah. And so that's a really fun issue. And Tim Drake's in that a lot. I actually, when that came out, I didn't even know there was another Alfred. I thought maybe like this was just something they made up for the book. So, before we move on to Robin 10, were there any other 0 Hour issues or events that stood out for any of you guys? I'll just throw it out there. Or
the big one I liked was Aquaman. That was the birth of his hook hand. The issue, I believe, right before the 0 Hour event is where he gets his hand put in the water and the piranhas eat it off, and it was really kind of gruesome. I remember reading that book going, what's going on? Like, my brain was just seeing the bone, the flesh. I'm like, I don't know what they're going to do to Aquaman, but it's like pre-Jason Momoa, which is kind of, I think, loosely where the Justice League Aquaman's based off of. He's got the beard, the long hair, and Hook Hand Aquaman kind of started right out of that. And I was reading Aquaman. I picked it up just because of the 0 Hour event, and for probably about a year, I bought Aquaman solidly.
That was a good series.
But I loved that Aquaman run.
Yeah.
Is that Peter David Aquaman?
Yeah, Peter David.
Yeah. Okay,
that was a great run. People give a lot of credit to Jeff Johns for giving some type of, like, I know this is the Tim Drake podcast, but bear with me. I'm a guest. No, the Peter David stuff was really good. I think it went a good 70 issues before I think Eric Larson or Dan Jurgens, somebody took over that was like, But if you're curious about some Aquaman, check out the Peter David run. It's really good, and his talking sharks are the best part of that book.
They're so
Has it been collected? Has that Peter David run been collected?
I don't know.
I don't think it has.
It started as a mini-series called Time and Tide, and then it went into a regular series, and I think the mini-series might have been collected, but not the regular issues. But yeah, it's great.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
I think they collected the series before it. There was one that went like 13 issues that preceded it, and then they canceled it for some reason, did Time and Tide, and then started this other series. And anyways, the Peter David Aquaman, it's such a good book. Go check it out.
Yeah.
And Ryan?
And you could find probably the whole entire run in the dollar bin. Very, very cheap.
Oh yeah.
How sad. Ryan, any 0 Hour thoughts before we jump into Robin 10?
No, it's just the ones I was talking about earlier, just seeing, because here's the thing, is like at the time when these books came out, it was not easy to just pick up old comic books and read, Batman in the 60s or whatever, because those books were either super expensive or hard to find. There wasn't really an internet to go and just read old comic books or whatever, or digital comics and stuff like that. The only thing that I had as a kid was this, I think it's a book by Mark Cottavaz. It's like Dark Knight, 50 years of his history between Tales of the Dark Knight or something like that. It's like 1939 to 1989, and that book has all this Batman history in it, and it's got all these color pictures of a lot of the old comic book covers. And so that's like the first big resource type book that I got to read as a kid, where I learned about all these old comics and what the old storylines were, and the whole history of Batman, before it was like the best resource I found for it as a kid before there was internet stuff. So these issues are cool because they kind of highlight those kind of legacy characters and styles in the present day. So I think that's what's cool.
Yeah,
about it.
and the back of it's probably in a few issues, but in the back of Shadow of the Bat 31, they have a little DC Universe page, and they've got some like predictions of what might happen in 0 Hour, and some of them are kind of true, some of them are twists, and some are funny. And the first one, I thought you'd get a kick out of this, Ryan. It says Barbara Gordon becomes Batgirl again. Meanwhile, Azrael assumes the identity of Oracle, setting the stage for Oracle Fall, Oracle the Crusade, Oracle Quest, The Search, and Oracle's End. So I thought that was kind of funny. And then it does kind of throw
Oh, they got the first part.
Yeah,
part of that right.
It says the Ray becomes a member of the New Titans. Dick Grayson becomes Robin again. Warrior finally decides on a costume, but so it was kind of, instead of being Robin, he becomes Batman. But I thought that was cool.
It'd be really weird if it said like Duke Thomas finally gets a superhero name. You'd be like, what is that? And then they we wait like 20 years.
Yeah,
that's the ultimate. Yeah,
who's Duke Thomas?
Yeah.
All right, so Robin 10. Let me start off.
Take my advice for a change. Don't get involved in this.
And ask you, Rob, because this is always the thing. Could this cover be a poster hanging in your house?
Yes, this could be a poster, and ironically, I don't know if you've seen like those wooden poster frames, not frames, but it's like looks like a comic cover you can get on Walmart, like one of those wooden painted things. I have the 0 Hour Batman with Tim Drake on it as a cover, and I was like, oh man, this would be so cool to have the Robin cover. So yes, if this was a poster, I would hang this on my wall, having Tim Drake and Dick Grayson. Although my only complaint with this is I know they're giving Dick Grayson his original hairstyle, but when I bought this, I thought, oh, Dick's teaming up with Jason Todd, because they had given Jason the little, double like cowlick, because traditionally Dick, they changed his thing to like the kind of like comb over, if you will. So at first I thought this was going to be a story with Jason Todd, and when I realized it was Dick, I was like, cool, even better.
Justin, what did you think of the cover?
It definitely it's kind of iconic, and what I like about it is it's kind of in that same vein of the first issue. I feel like it's like complementary to that. I know Robin's jumping at you at the first one, but I don't know, it's a no-brainer, and it felt like it was probably an easy assignment, but Tom Grummett, he just nailed all of these books. Every book that he worked on back then, like he did, I think he was doing Superboy at the same time, and I think I liked his inker on this better. Like I think he was working with a different inker on Superboy, but regardless,
I think a lot of the comments we even read some of the letters columns. Mm-hmm. For these books and some of these shows, and that's one of the things that people instantly started talking about when they talked about Grummett's artwork in the Robin series. They're like, "Oh, his artwork's so much better because he has a different inker."
He just really nailed. Like, I think he did good with like the younger heroes, because they didn't look like mini people. They he did a good job. But as far as the cover, I think it was a great cover. It's good stuff, and it made you like, oh, what the heck's going on with, every 0 Hour issue, but it was really like Robin and Robin hanging out. This is going to be a good one.
Ryan, what'd you think of the cover?
Yeah, it's like the same thing you were talking about, Justin, because we've mentioned this on some of the other shows. Like, Jim Aparo is one of my absolute favorite Batman artists, but his younger characters don't really look young. Like, his Jean Paul and his Tim Drake look like, 40-year-olds sometimes, and they just don't really look like children or kids or teenagers. Tom Grummett's artwork kind of really sells this, and you instantly know that they're two different Robins from two different eras. If you even have a passing familiarity of the character, you would notice like the costume of, oh, that's the old one from the 60s show. Like, at least if you didn't even know him from the comics, you would know that distinction.
When the series started, the first couple issues were inked by Scott Hanna, and then it switched to Ray Kreising, and I could tell that the artwork got better. Looking real quick, Superboy was inked by Doug Hazelwood. So somehow I knew that this was Dick Grayson, unlike Rob, who thought it might have been Jason Todd. And I was really excited for this when it came out, because it was the first Dick Grayson as Robin story I was really ever going to read in that came out in like real time. I had a trade paperback, Batman, the Greatest Stories Ever Told, but the Robin didn't really feel like a Dick Grayson. It just felt like generic Robin in those stories. This cover, if you get the awesome Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison, Batman and Robin issue number 10 actually kind of pays homage to this cover, where they have Dick Grayson as Batman kind of kneel down, and then Damian's behind him on this, but he's got, I think, a sword or an axe getting ready to kill him. So but it's pretty cool how they did for Batman and Robin number 10, the throwback to Robin number 10. All right, if we get into the issue, it starts off. Actually, one thing I wanted to say too. You guys had mentioned the costume and everything, and the art. What I think is really cool in this issue is how good Tom Grummett makes Dick Grayson's costume look. Like you might have. Next to the brand new Tim Drake costume and everything, you might think it might look silly or ridiculous, but it actually looks really cool. It's like, why they?
Yeah, because he manages to make it look iconic instead of he doesn't cross that goofy threshold. So
very much like George Perez in the Teen Titans with it, kind of. Yeah. So it starts off with we got like a jewel thief, a jewel heist, and it's entitled Two Birds, One Stone, and we kind of see. Tim Drake kind of starting to break up the jewel heist here, and as he's fighting, he hears heads up, and in comes Dick Grayson Robin, and they kind of meet here. And unlike most superhero team-ups where they have to have the heroes fight, these two get along right away, and we don't have that, obligatory let's fight for 5 pages before we realize we're friends. So, Ryan, what'd you think of the intro to this book and how they introduced Dick Grayson in it?
Well, the first thing is, if you guys didn't know, that the title Two Birds, One Stone, that the birds are the two Robins, okay? And the one stone is the diamond.
Hi-oh.
So there you go. It's like super clever. So I mean, I think it's a cool intro, and I do kind of like the fact that Dick Grayson Robin just kind of shows up, and he's like, "Hey, I know who you are, and let's be Robin." And the thing that I instantly picked up on is that Chuck Dixon does a great job of writing a Dick Grayson Robin. Because he does a really good job of differentiating both Tim Drake and Dick Grayson, but they both feel like Robin. But they feel very individual, and like as you read through the issue, you kind of start to see which strengths match which Robin, which is a really cool distinction.
Yeah, first off, I thought it was cool that they got to do a crossover with Snake Eyes. Like, just kidding. No, it was cool. Same thing. Ryan's kind of echoing. It was cool you get
Justin,
that brash
Dick
Grayson Robin, jumping in there, the confident guy, and from like the get-go, like a hint of Tim's like uneasiness with my predecessor, the guy that started this job, and Dick Grayson just owning it and like, hey man, go home. Like he's just assuming he's somebody else. Like, hey man, me and Batman will take care of this. And here's what was cool is like he is still from a more innocent time.
It's true.
Like in the Batman and Robin time, like in the comic timeline, like Dick Grayson's probably like 10 years older than Tim Drake, at least at this time,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. So if he's Nightwing, he's probably like 26 and Tim Drake's like 16 or something like that. So it's funny that he's still kind of golly gee Robin. Like that's the vibe I got on him, but
he's younger than Tim at this stage.
So it's just kind of like this little kid barking orders around, and so whereas Damian is full of himself, I'm a jerk. This guy's just like he's just a good kid.
And what he says gets backed up too. He's like he's good at what he does too.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really funny, like that Tim goes through the trouble of taking Dick Grayson's fingerprints to prove that he's Dick Grayson, and he's like, well, you can't be your Dick Grayson. And he's like, how could you know that? And I'm like, Dick Grayson Robin, he just took your fingerprints, I mean, it's obvious that he knows who you are.
I was like, come on, Robin, don't give some stranger who's trying to be you your fingerprint.
Exactly.
Like
that's what I was going to say.
Well, first, he willingly gives him his fingerprints, and then he's confused about how Tim Drake would know who he is. I'm like, come on, dude, fingerprints. That's not like doesn't exist in your time, does it?
So, Rob, seeing the two Robins, I imagine when you read it, I just think of that same scene in Batman Forever when Jim Carrey Riddler's blowing up the Batcave and just yells, "Joygasm!" Was that you at seeing the two Robins together?
This is the book I've been waiting for my whole life, Two Robins. I had to buy multiple copies because I just cried every time I read through it. This is beautiful. No, I just wanted to echo what you guys were talking about the scanner, about in Chuck writing two very distinctive Robins in this. You have the naivete in Dick Grayson where, oh, you may take off my glove and put my hand on this thing, but like you said, he's able later on to back up what he's doing just like we were saying, like the unsureness about Tim, I think it's just brilliantly done between the two, where it doesn't seem like they're both a carbon copies of one another. One is clearly Dick Grayson, one is clearly Tim Drake, and they both have distinctive acts in the way they're drawn and the way they move. You can clearly tell that there are two separate individuals. So I thought this was just really cool.
As we go through the story, my first thought of it was, this is kind of a dumb story. It's kind of not really that good. But then when I kind of dug a little deeper and realized what Chuck Dixon was doing, like if you read stories from the 60s, and like when we read the Shotgun Smith story and stuff, like this is how these stories went. Like if you read Batman comics from the 60s, this is how they feel. They have that weird twist, and spoilers, weird twist ending that seems stupid, like things like the Robin putting his fingerprints on the scanner and stuff happen. So I think Chuck Dixon does like a brilliant job of recreating those kind of fun, silly, goofy, not the most realistic stories from the 60s. And one of the things I really like about this issue as we go on, 99% of comic book writers who are writing, the new character, the new Robin, the new Wolverine, the new whatever, would have tried to show how much better the new guy is. Like, look, the new guy can do this, and the new guy has got that, and the new guy's got... Where Chuck Dixon does the opposite and has Tim Drake going like, man, I can't keep up with the old guy. Like, look at his moves, and it makes you really like Tim Drake. Like, you're not like, oh, this jerk. It really gets you on the side of Tim Drake, and I just think a lot of other guys would have done the exact opposite. So I think that's really cool. And then here on pages 6 and 7, we see the Redbird making an appearance. And I thought it had gotten wrecked at one point. Rob, was that wrecked, or is it just rebuilt, or has 0 Hour brought it back together?
I think all it was it was just driven off the road in issue 2. So I don't think there was any damage to the car, because it was even seen in Nightfall, where Tim is chasing after
in the Knight's Quest.
Knight's Quest, yeah.
Conclusion, yeah.
Yeah, so it wasn't wrecked or anything. I think that Batmobile just outran the Redbird.
It does get wrecked at some point, though.
I love how Dick just thinks that like it's part of Tim's cosplay, because he's like, the cool car, you really take this serious.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be mad that Batman didn't get me the car.
I like that Dick makes the comment about the long pants. Nice touch on the long pants,
Yeah. That's the thing. You think that going in this timeline, it splinters off, and Dick Grayson's like, hey, can I get some pants? And then forever he's got pants.
In a car? Chicks did the car.
No.
Dick has got to teach Tim how to like do his laundry karate style or whatever that was in the so let's see, where are we on the story? So they're chasing the one stone here, the jewel thief Weasel Grimes, and they hear on the police scanners that he's heading down some highway somewhere, the viaduct, the north-south viaduct. So they follow him in the Redbird, and he gets away. And then on page 9, we have a really cool like interior scene of the Redbird. And what I really like about this scene is Tim almost mentions Jason Todd, and then he like pulls back, and it just has that like cloud of Jason Todd's death overhanging it. And that was such a cool thing in the 90s comics, that there had been this Robin who had died, and I really hate that they kind of brought him back because of that. Here on page 9, I'll throw it to you, Justin. What did you think of their interaction and the whole Jason Todd thing, and why he doesn't tell him straight out about Jason?
Yeah, one of the things is kind of going throughout the entire comic, but especially in this scene, is just a curiosity from both of them. Like, they both have these questions, like, well, what's going on with him? And he wants to ask him what happened to me, and where's Batman? And I love all that. And then the questions that Tim has for Dick. But yeah, I thought it was a good scene. I actually really like the bottom left panel of Dick Grayson, because it looks like Grummet's trying to evoke like Dick Giordano or a classic look for his face too. It doesn't look so like modern in the artwork if you look at that. Just in that face. I don't know if that was intentional, because it's just two dudes with two white guys with black hair and masks, and they definitely look like different guys. But yeah, I love that scene. And yeah, the moment with Jason, you kind of get that, oh man, that's going to be a hard one because Dick could be going, "Did I die?" But he never asked that question.
Yeah.
He's just assuming, "Oh, did I retire?
Exactly.
Did you replace me?"
Which is part of that
He
whole
never
like
assumes.
innocent part of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was a good scene.
Yeah, cool. Rob, what'd you think?
I just what Justin said. The thing that I really liked about the scene, and more importantly, just being a Robin fan, is maybe I'm the only one, but it kind of takes your breath away as a Robin fan hearing Dick Grayson ask. It's kind of like that thing when somebody asks about, what year did Grandpa pass away, and there's that kind of that hush that kind of goes through as people start remembering the events of whatever that sad situation is. So putting it in this context where Tim's like, do I say something? Do I not? Do I need to shield him from this? And so I thought that was just a real touching moment, that in the high speed chase of let's go get the bad guy, there's this somber moment between the two. And in that panel that Justin was talking about, that curiosity of like, you can tell just in the drawing, like Dick really wants to know what's going on. And in the corresponding panel, Tim is very stern, just like, no, forget it. I'm not going to talk about it. Like, you don't need to know that. So I thought that was really kind of a cool moment.
And what'd you think, Ryan?
Like you said, Rob, when you go and look at it from the angle of Tim holding things back from Dick Grayson and things like that, it's almost like this whole scene is like Batman driving in the Batmobile with Robin, but instead you have Tim Drake driving in the Redbird with Dick Grayson. So you still have this kind of Batman and Robin dynamic because, the way this story is set up, Tim has, more total experience as Robin than this version of Dick Grayson has. And so he's been through a lot of, heavier things in his crime fighting career compared to Dick Grayson probably at this stage. And so he's got to hold things back and be a little bit more serious and stern. And I think that's an interesting thing. And the other cool thing is that although Tim holds back from telling Dick about what happened to Jason, Dick doesn't forget about it. It comes back up later in the issue, and I think that's kind of a cool payoff, actually.
Yeah, and so then they travel to they follow the Weasel to the Gotham Aquarium, which that should have been the title. Follow the Weasel.
This should be interesting.
Pop goes the Weasel.
Third base.
Pop goes the Weasel. Yeah.
Third base, exactly.
Dixon was lying to us, man. He is a third base hardcore. You know what he said? I'd never heard of them. And
they should have been on the dashboard. That's what they're listening to in the Redbird.
Can you just put a little snippet of that song in there, right there?
I already wrote a note while we were talking. Third base. Yeah, it's going in. Matter of fact, it'll go in right here.
Let's all sing "Pop Goes the Weasel."
Pop goes the whining of the weasel. I see the empty pocket needs a refill. I got a squad with a list of complainers. I should have started rape rappers against phony entertainers, so we can make it known that we won't get swayed. It's 91, son, so something's gotta change. Getting paid, pedal sneakers and soda pop. Pop goes the weasel, his drawers drop. Why not take a top 10 pop hit? Fix the music and make sense, this rhymes fit. I guess it's the fact that you can't be artistic. Intricate raps becoming so simplistic. I got a strong mind, it doesn't have to be spoon-fed. And I can read, it doesn't have to be read. So some stay illiterate and feeble, legally licked. You go the ways of the weasel. The weasel. Pop goes the weasel, 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 cause the weasel goes pop.
There you go. Third base, ladies and gentlemen.
As we see in the next few panels, Tim Drake has never seen the movie Blackfish because he's going to make a comment here about killer whales never killing anybody, which is not true anymore. But for the next couple pages, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages here? It's basically actually 8 pages. They're just basically chasing the weasel through the aquarium until they finally get to the weasel who's hanging dangerously above the piranha tank. So, Rob, what'd you think of this chase scene going after the weasel through the aquarium?
I thought it was really cool how this was all laid out and coming from Tim's perspective, where just following the series so far, what an improvement, Tim Drake is as a Robin from his predecessor Jason, that Dick still manages to school Tim on how to be a Robin, and it's not done in a kind of a Damien way, like, let me show you what to do, Grayson, kind of a thing. Dick is just doing the things that he would normally do with the flips off the railing and reaching stuff, and even Tim going, there's no way I could do that type of move. And it just shows the fluidity, if I could say that word right, in Dick Grayson. And it almost kind of shows you that Tim still has a lot of work to do, but those type of things that Dick is doing are not Tim's strengths as a Robin. Mm-hmm. So it kind of flips at the end of the story that maybe the strengths that Tim has aren't really the strengths that Dick has as a Robin at this time. So reading it, you kind of go, man, I really liked Tim as a character, but Chuck's not painting Tim in the best light in the story until it comes around to the end. So it's kind of that thing like where you're weak, I'm strong, and where I'm strong, you're weak. Mm-hmm. It's the two helping each other out, and Tim coming to grips with that through the story. I thought it was done very well.
Yeah, I think that the character of Tim Drake, like, we've all seen him prove his use and his abilities as a detective and as Batman's partner, but there's something about this issue that validates it all, because all he needed, he doesn't need Batman to validate him. He needs Dick Grayson, his peer, to validate him almost.
Yeah. That shows how upset he gets when he kind of doesn't get that.
Oh yeah, well, but until the end, then it kind of meant like, man, I am going to be good at this. And that was a cool scene. That whole, I didn't mean to skip all over the place, but it was cool to get that final part that, you know what? You are good at this. Just because you can't do some backflips, the triple, what was the triple Daredevil death-defying backflip, or whatever the heck that is. That's how he found it out. He should have said, it was because you did these flips. That's how I figured
and that's what out. Gave you away.
So hold on. So Justin is saying that it, being good at being at like a detective and stuff over just a bunch of training can make you a good Robin.
Well, yeah, but you got to have other skills and stuff. But for him, I think Tim's value is he's a great detective. He's the one that could be the successor to Batman, whereas Dick Grayson, he can't succeed Batman because he needs to do his own thing. He doesn't want to be under the shadow, where all Tim wants is to be in the shadow.
My example was just a very, very sly John Blake reference, but
don't you see it doesn't matter?
Go ahead.
Oh, God, I kind of picked up on it, but I wasn't going to go there.
It was.
There you go.
Ryan,
Orphan Vision, yeah. Orphan Vision and throw smoke bombs. Robin.
Right when I saw you, I knew who you really were. I'd seen that look on your face before. It's the same one I taught myself.
That'd be interesting if people were just I can't see the second Robin, but they can only see each other because they have Orphan Vision or something.
Well, I was gonna say, man, it would have been cool. It probably would have been too hard. If it could have been awesome to be a 3-person team up, because to see Jason Todd act a little more brash, and then for Tim to kind of man, don't do this because you're going to end up dead. That would have been a really cool.
Yeah, he could Leroy Jenkins it or something and just rush in.
Yeah. But anyway, and then maybe that's how he survives later on. He didn't die, but instead of Superboy punching the wall. Anyways,
yes, so stupid.
Not even the future will escape my grasp.
I'm sorry. I love the mullet. The mullet Superman ad in for the Batman Adventures team up.
Oh, sorry. I know. You know what's cool about that? To go totally off the rails. What's cool about that is before the Superman animated series. So it makes me think if Superman ever really did appear in Batman the animated series, that's probably what he would look like. He would be this weird animated version with the mullet.
DC was like, you gotta use the mullet.
That is
that was in their character sheets.
Well, they took the character design for Dick Grayson using the Tim Drake costume and updated it. So I would agree with you, Justin, that if that's how Superman looked at that time, that's just what they would have. I think they would have used it.
It reminds me of did you guys ever get the Batman Superman magazine?
Yes,
in
I've
this
got it here
era.
somewhere.
Man, I need to go dig up my old issues. I think it only ran for a
Because
few issues, but I remember it being really cool.
I think if I can find it, I'll post a picture somewhere. They do an animated series version of the mullet hair Superman because the animated series was going on obviously at that time. I think it's one of the only times you see like the Bruce Timm version of Superman with the mullet on it. I'll have to dig that out.
This issue 25, I remember that because when they announced they were going to do a Superman cartoon, I wondered, is it going to look just like this? And they decided to go back to the Kurt Swan. But this Superman 25 was a good issue. Batman tries to kill Superman in it and almost does, but then he says his mom's name at the end and stops.
You're letting him kill Martha.
What does that mean? Why did you say that name?
Find him. Save Martha. Why did you say that name? Martha, why did you say that name?
Stop! Please, stop!
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name. It's his mother's name.
So, but it was good though. No, now that'd be a terrible idea for a story. Yeah, they'd never do that. So, Ryan, what'd you think of the aquarium chase scene, especially page 17, where he's like his face is in shadow and Jason and all that? That was pretty cool.
Yeah, you just got me on this whole BVS idea, and it's like what if they did like a 0 hour issue where it's like these animated ones are just like, don't do this, but yeah, no, like it's cool to see them get into the aquarium and start going on kind of this mission together, this, trying to track this guy down, because that's when you finally start to get this kind of, there's a little bit of discourse between these two Robins. Tim's like, well, he's just so good at everything. You know what I mean? And that's kind of a really cool dynamic that starts to come out. I think it's kind of interesting.
I like how he's all, we can't call each other, we can't just call each other Robin.
What's your name? And it started making me think of, the old Denny O'Neil issues of Batman where he's like, in the Laughing Fish or whatever. Was it Laughing Fish or 5-Way Revenge? I get those mixed up because of the animated series. I think it's 5-Way Revenge, right, where Batman gets trapped with a shark and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. All this kind of is reminiscent of that.
I want to say something.
Go ahead.
I wish I had that issue here. It would be so cool if this is the same aquarium. It's the Gotham Aquarium. I know it'd be really easy to do, but that'd be really cool to find out this is the same aquarium that Batman was in with that shark.
Oh, yeah. I think that is cool. It's a cool idea.
So then, it's a cool scene on page 17, how like Tim's face is all in shadow. Just see his eyes green, and he thinks of Jason, and that's how he's like realizes he's got to take it slow. So they slow it down, and they realize the Weasel is above the Piranha tank. And the cool thing is, like, when I'm reading it, I was like, well, how did he miss them shooting him? And, how did he miss shooting them and stuff like that? But it's really not about the chase, per se. It's about the two Robins interacting and the differences. And then the Weasel falls into the Piranha tank, and almost instantly, next to the Hawkman ad, which is pretty cool. Justin, I figured you'd like that one. Yeah. They see like his skeleton. The piranhas just stripped him down in a matter of seconds, and that's it. It seems like it's all over, although it's only page 20, not 22. So I'll throw it to you, Rob. Did you think that was the end of the Weasel when you read this, or did you think there was a little something more?
I actually kind of probably bought into it at the time, thinking, okay, the bad guy's dead. They didn't get him, but like you said, even through the whole chase scene, it wasn't more about them being shot at as it more was them working out. So I thought, okay, they're going to put a nice little button on it, and they're both, maybe this is how they were going to tie into death, of the second Robin or whatever. So I kind of bit into it and thought, yeah, he's probably dead, but that's not the important thing in the story.
Yeah. Dick's surprisingly cool with it. Oh, case closed.
Yep.
He's dead.
We're done, old chum.
We should
let's get out of
funnel
here.
all the villains into the aquarium. And then, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're kind of an accessory at that point. Like, if they cause the guy to fall in there, I don't know.
It's just, I felt like there's something going up with it because the whole story hadn't been paid off yet, really. Because Tim started to think about, something's not right and everything like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be some Tim's detective strengths shine through, and of course that's exactly what happens.
Why does Tim have a yellow glove? Is that a lighting thing, or
it's a bad coloring? I believe there's a few things in the issue like that.
Dick has pants getting into the Batmobile and they're green.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Missed that. Shoot, what page was that on? I totally missed it.
Unless it's the coloring in my trade, but it's page 7, and Tim's jumping in and Dick's running alongside, and he's got green pants.
Huh.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Okay.
You're totally right.
So then, like I said, this is so much like a 1960s comic. Like, it's all over, but wait, it isn't. And we get a little Bullock and Montoya here. And I think, does Dick say something about Bullock? Like, Bullock's still on the force or something like that? Yeah. And then they realize those piranhas actually were not man-eating piranhas, which I don't know what the Weasel's plan was, because you would think the next morning when the aquarium, like scientists got there and would be like, those piranhas don't eat people. But anyway, it's just kind of for fun. And we see that the two birds catch the one stone here. So before it fades out to white, what'd you think of the twist ending, Ryan?
I think it's a cool twist ending just because, like I said, I'm like, well, something is up with this, and just to have them solve the mystery and get the guy is kind of cool. And the best part of it is just to see Dick Grayson, recognize, oh yeah, you've got merit as Robin. And more coloring mistakes. Tim Drake's gloves are yellow on page 22.
Those look like the gloves my mom used to use to wash dishes with.
You know what? It's all these coloring mistakes are just little indicators.
0 hours.
0 hours.
Zero
About
hours.
to exactly. It's about to happen.
Your mission of vengeance doesn't concern me. I have a higher mission.
I love that Dick Grayson's like, so tell me he was wearing piranha repellent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
like that's such a thing.
Rob, anything you wanted to add to these catching the bad guy here?
I think it's a nice little, it's almost a Scooby-Doo thing. I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for the water on the floor and the stupid Harvey Bullock eating the jelly donut, type of thing. I just thought it was a nice way to button it up, and the pat on the back, like Justin was saying, that Tim had kind of been longing for. It's one thing for even Alfred to say you're doing a good job, but when your predecessor pats you on the back and says, "Oh, I can see how you got the job, Robin," is kind of what Tim was looking for all along.
Yeah, it's quite an elaborate plan by the Weasel to have like the body hidden in the aquarium and get them all there, and there's easier ways to fake your death. But anyway, then we get the fade out to white, and then we get the 0 hour. So before we move on to the next issue in the saga of Tim Drake, Rob, what were your final thoughts on issue number 10?
Well, I think with having a guest on the show, we probably ought to rate it like, is this a gotta go? Is it a let's go? Is it trash juice?
Yeah, when I was listening to the podcast today, I thought the same thing. I was like, I got to make sure I get the right system. Yeah.
I'm blushing.
In case you're unfamiliar how we rate things on the Drake, if you're kind of like, man, don't go to this one. This is it. Don't go. Or if you think, let's go to the comic shop, go back to 1990 something and go pick it up. If you're like, man, let's go, let's do this, or man, you gotta go get in the DeLorean, go back in time. So I think this is you gotta go pick this up. I think it's just a Chuck Dixon masterfully just crafts the two Robins, like we've been saying this whole issue, puts them together and gives that voice for Dick Grayson, to where I kind of felt like I was reading a 60s, early 70s Dick Grayson Robin throughout the whole issue. So this was a great issue. So gotta go.
Mm-hmm. Justin, any final thoughts on issue 10?
Yeah, I'm so flattered, man. That was so nice. Yeah, man, it is such a great issue, and it's definitely a gotta go. And it was, this was my first like Dick Grayson as Robin comic I ever read, because he was always Nightwing by the time I was reading comics. And so, I mean, I've read older ones, like my uncle gave me tons of Teen Titans, but like publishing like during my lifetime, that was the first time I read a Dick Grayson as Robin. So yeah, it's cool. That's why I was really excited. I was like, I gotta do this show, because this was one of the ones that stood out to me. It's just such a fun idea to be able to team up, one of those things that doesn't always happen, and you get the excuse because of this really crazy event. So I just want to see a flashback episode one day where Robin is talking about, man, I remember the day Batman made me study all the fish. Because that's how he knows like what fish I'm glad he pulled
he's
that
like
out of his,
tests. He's at like tests of like different tubes full of different fish, and be like, this one eats plants, these eat meat.
Yeah.
Dang
it. Dude, 10 more flips, Robin. Anyways, yeah, fun issue.
And then Ryan, want to finish it up for us? How many let's goes would you give issue number 10?
Yeah. It's a gotta go for sure, because it's the reason it's so good is because you rarely get an issue like this where you can have two different Robins interacting with each other in this way, and the characterization is done so well that it's absolutely worth your time. As a Robin fan, it's a must read.
I listen to you like you could influence time and space. Ha! You can talk all you want, but you're still part of my universe. Surprise! 4, 3, 2, 1, 0! I announce the creation of a new era. One day, you will understand.
Thanks for listening to Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. This has been brought to you by the BatmanUniverse.net. Tim Drake, Robin, and all Batman-related characters are under copyright of DC Comics. This podcast is solely for entertainment purposes, so no infringement is intended by this show. This show is not a good revenue stream. Actually, there's not a stream at all. All music and sound clips are under copyright by their respective copyright holders. So there should be no need to send the Penguins lawyers after us for ill-gotten gains, because there are none. You can get a hold of the show a few different ways. We are on Twitter at ELTD Podcast. You can also email in at robineltdpodcast@yahoo.com. Our Facebook page can be found at www.facebook.com/everyonelovesthedrake. And as always, you can message directly over at the BatmanUniverse.net. So email, tweet, or message us. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll read your comments or responses on the show. The show you're listening to can be found a few different ways through iTunes and Windows Media, also over at our host, TBU. Leave us a review on iTunes if you listen there. It'll help spread the word of the show. Make sure you head over to the BatmanUniverse.net, your home for all things Batman and Robin. Thanks for listening to the show and hearing why everyone loves the Drake. We'll see you in a few weeks. Take care.